everybody. So we get Children of Blood and Bone, chapter 22. We're in Amari's perspective here. Back home at the palace, every window in my quarters only allowed me to look in. Father had the new wing constructed right after I was born, insistent that every window could only face the courtyard. The most I could see of the outside world was the leopard orchards of the royal garden in full bloom. The palace is all you need to be concerned with, Father would say when I begged him for a different view. Orisha's future is decided within these walls. As princess, yours will be too. I tried to hold on to his words, allow palace life to satiate me the way it did Mother. I made an effort to socialize with the other Oliers and their daughters. I attempted to find entertainment in palace gossip, but at night. I used to sneak into Enan's quarters and climb out to the balcony overlooking our capital. I would imagine what lay beyond the wooden walls of Lagos, the beautiful world I longed to see. One day, I would whisper to Binta. One day indeed, she would smile back. As I dreamed, I never imagined the hell of the jungle, all the mosquitoes and sweat and jagged stones, but after 4 days in the desert, I'm convinced there's no limit to the hells Orisha can hold. The desert provides no foxer meat to eat, no water or coconut milk to drink. All it gifts us with is sand. Endless mountains of sand. Despite the scarf wrapped so tightly around my face I can barely breathe, grains settle in my mouth, my nose, my ears. Their persistence is matched only by the scorching sun. A final touch to this bleak wasteland. The longer we travel through it, the more my fingers itch to grab Nayla's reins and yank her the other way. But even if we turned around now, where in Sky's name would I go? My own brother hunts me. Father probably desires my head. I can hardly fathom all the lies Mother's spinning in my absence. Perhaps if Binta was still at the palace, I would risk crawling back with my tail between my legs, but even she's gone. This sand is all I have left. Sadness swells inside me as I close my eyes and picture her face. Just a brief thought of her is almost enough to take me away from the hell of this desert. If she were here, she'd be smiling, laughing at the grains of sand that got stuck between her teeth. She'd find beauty in all of this. Binta found the beauty in everything. Before I can stop myself, my thoughts of Binta take me further, bringing me back to our days in the palace. One morning when we were young, I snuck into her mother's quarters, eager to show her my favorite jewels. As I climbed into the vanity, I rambled on and on about the villages Enan was going to see on his military visits. It's not fair, I whined. He'll go all the way to Ikoyi. He's going to see the actual sea. You'll get your chance. Binta stayed back, hands clamped to her side. No matter how many times I motioned for her to join me, she insisted she couldn't. One day, I draped Mother's prized emerald necklace over my head, captivated by the way it glimmered in the mirror's light. What about you? I asked. When we leave, what village do you want to see? Anything. Binta's eyes lost focus. Everything. She bit her bottom lip as a smile came to her face. I think I'd love it all. No one in my family has ever traveled past Lagos's walls. Why not? I wrinkled my nose and rose to my feet, reaching for the case that held Mother's antique headdress. It just sat above my reach. I leaned forward. Amari, don't! Before Binta's words could stop me, I lost my balance. With a jolt, I knocked the case over. It took all of 2 seconds before everything else came tumbling to the floor. Amari! I'll never know how Mother arrived so quickly. Her voice echoed under the arched entrance of her room as she took in the mess I had made. When I couldn't speak, it was Binta who stepped forward. My deepest apologies, Your Highness. I was told to polish your jewelry. Princess Amari was only coming to my aid. If you must punish someone, it should be me. You lazy brat! Mother snatched up Binta's wrist. Amari is a princess. She is not here to do your chores. Mother, that's not... Quiet, Mother snapped, snarling as she dragged Binta away. It's clear we've been too lenient with you. You'll benefit from the teachings of a whip. No, Mother, wait! Nayla stumbles, pulling me from the depths of my guilt. Binta's young face fades out of my mind as Tizane struggles to keep us from collapsing down a mountain of sand. I grip the leather stirrups as Zelly leans down and rubs Nayla's fur. I'm sorry, girl, Zelly soothes. I promise we'll be there soon. Are you sure? My voice comes out dry, as brittle as the sand surrounding us. But I can't tell if the lump in my throat is from the lack of water or the memory of Binta. We're close. Tizane turns back, squinting to keep out the sun. Even with his eyes nearly shut, his deep brown gaze holds me, making my cheeks flush. If we don't get there today, we'll hit Abeji tomorrow. But what if the sunstone isn't in Abeji? Zelly asks. What if Lakin's lead was wrong? We only have 13 days until the solstice. If it's not here, we're damned. He can't be wrong. The thought makes my empty stomach lurch. All the determination I felt in Chandobli crumbles. Skies. All of this would be so much easier if Lakin were still alive. With his guidance and magic, Enon pursuing us wouldn't be a threat. We'd have a chance to find the sunstone. We might already be on our way to the sacred island to perform the ritual. But with Lakin gone, we're no closer to saving the Magi. If anything, we're just running out of time, marching toward our deaths. Lakin wouldn't lead us astray. It's here. Tizane pauses, craning his neck. And unless that's a mirage, so are we. Zelly and I peer past Tizane's broad shoulders. Heat bounces off the sand and waves, blurring the horizon, but in time a cracked clay wall crystallizes into view. To my surprise, we're only 3 of many travelers making their way into the desert city from all directions. Unlike us, several of the migrating parties travel in caravans, crafted from reinforced timber and embellished with gold, vehicles so adorned that they have to belong to nobles. A pulse of excitement travels through me as I narrow my eyes to get a closer look. When I was a child, I once overheard Father warn his generals about the dangers of the desert, a land overpowered with grounders. He claimed their magic could transform every single grain of sand into a lethal weapon. Later that night, I told Binta what I learned as she combed through the tangles of my hair. That's not true, she corrected me. The grounders in the desert are peaceful. They use their magic to create settlements from the sand. In that moment, I pictured what a sand city would look like, unrestrained by the laws and materials governing our architecture. If grounders really did rule the desert, their magnificent cities have crumbled, disappearing alongside them. But after 4 days in the ghastly desert, the meager settlement of Abeji shimmers. The first sign of hope in this wretched wasteland. Thank the skies. Perhaps we shall survive this. Shanty tents and clay Hades greet us when we make our way past the wall. Like the slum dwellings of Lagos, the sand huts are stout and square, soaking in the rays of the sun. The largest of the Hades loom in the distance, bearing a seal I know all too well. The carved snow lepinaire flickers in the sun, its sharp fangs bared to bite. A guard post, I croak, tensing in Nayla's saddle. Though the royal seal is etched into the clay wall, it waves in my mind like the velvet banners in Father's throne room. After the raid, he abolished the old seal, a gallant bull-horned lionaire that always used to make me feel safe. Instead, he proclaimed that our power would be represented by the snow lepinaires, riders who were ruthless, pure. Amari, Zelly hisses, snapping me out of my thoughts. She dismounts Nayla and wraps her scarf tighter around her face, urging me to do the same. Let's split up. Tizane slides off Nayla's back and hands us his canteen. We shouldn't be spotted together. You guys get water, I'll find a place to stay. Zelly nods and walks off. But once again, Tizane holds my gaze. You okay? I force a nod, though I cannot bring myself to speak. One glimpse of the royal seal, and it's like my throat has been filled with sand. Just stay close to Zelly. Because you are weak, I imagine him spitting, through his dark eyes are kind. Because despite the sword you carry, you cannot protect yourself. He gives my arm a gentle squeeze before taking Nayla by the reins and walking her in the opposite direction. I stare after his broad figure, fighting my desire to follow until Zelly hisses my name. This'll be fine. I put a smile in my eyes, though Zelly doesn't even look my way. I thought things were starting to ease between us after Sakoto, but whatever goodwill I earned was crushed the minute my brother showed up at the temple. For the past 4 days, Zelly has barely spoken to me, as if I'm the one who killed Lakin. The only time she does seem to look at me, I catch her staring at my back. I stay close as we continue down the empty streets, searching for food in vain. My throat screams for a cold cup of water, a fresh loaf of bread, a nice cut of meat, but unlike the merchant quarter of Lagos, there are no colorful storefronts, no displays of succulent delights. The town appears almost as starved as its surrounding desert. Gods, Zelly curses under her breath, pausing as her shivers worsen. Although the sun beats down with a fury, her teeth chatter as if she's in an ice bath. Since her awakening, she shakes more and more, recoiling whenever she senses that the spirits of the dead are near. Are there that many? I whisper. She pants when one shiver stops. It's like walking through a burial ground. With heat like this, we probably are. I don't know. Zelly looks around, yanking her scarf close. Every time one hits, I taste blood. A chill rocks through me, though sweat leaks from every pore. If Zelly can taste blood, I don't want to know why. Perhaps, I pause, sawing in the sand as a pack of men flood into the street. Though they're obscured by capes and masks, their dust-covered clothes bear Orisha's royal seal. Guards. I grab onto Zelly as she reaches for her staff. Each soldier reeks of liquor. Some stumble with every step. My legs quake as if made of water. Then, quick as they came, they disperse, disappearing among the clay of Hades. Get yourself together. Zelly shoves me off her. I fight not to tumble into the sand. There is no sympathy in her gaze. Unlike Tizane, her silver eyes rage. The words are weak, though I will them to be strong. I apologize. I was caught off guard. If you're going to act like a princess, turn yourself into the guards. I'm not here to protect you. I'm here to fight. That's not fair. I wrap my arms around myself. I'm fighting too. Well, seeing as your father created this mess, if I were you, I'd fight a little harder. With that, Zelly turns, kicking up sand as she storms off. My face burns as I follow, careful to keep my distance this time. We continue toward Abeji's central square, a collection of tangled streets and square huts crafted from red clay. As we near, we see more nobles gathering, conspicuous with their bright silk caftans and their trailing attendants. Although I don't recognize anyone, I adjust my scarf, worried that even the smallest slip will give my identity away. But what are they doing here so far from the capital? There are so many nobles, they're only outnumbered by the laborers and the stocks. I pause for a moment, aghast at the number of them filling the narrow path. Before today, I caught only glimpses of the laborers brought in to staff the palace, always pleasant, clean, groomed to mother's satisfaction. Like Binta, I thought they lived simple lives, safe within the palace walls. I never considered where they came from, where else they might have ended up. Skies. It's almost too hard to bear the sight. Mostly diviners, the laborers outnumber the villagers by hordes, dressed in nothing but tattered rags. Their dark skin blisters under the scorching sun, marred by the dirt and sand seemingly burned into their beings. Each is hardly more than a walking skeleton. What's going on? I whisper, tallying the number of children in chains. Almost all of them are young. Even the oldest still appears younger than me. I search for the resources they must be mining, but the freshly laid roads, the new fortress erected in the desert village, but no sign of their efforts appear. What are they doing here? Zelly locks eyes with a dark girl who has long white hair like hers. The laborer wears a tattered white dress. Her eyes are sunken, devoid of almost all life. They're in the stocks, Zelly mutters. They go where they're told. Surely it isn't always this bad. In Lagos, I saw people who looked even worse. She moves toward the guard post at the central square, while my insides twist. Though no food fills my stomach, it churns with the truth. All those years sitting silent at the table, sipping tea while people died. I reach forward to fill my canteen at the well, avoiding the guard's leering eyes. Zelly reaches to do the same. The guard's sword slashes down with a fury. We jump back, hearts pounding. His sword cuts into the wooden rim where Zelly's hand rested just seconds before. She grips the staff in her waistband, hand trembling with rage. My eyes follow the sword up to the glaring soldier who wields it. The sun has darkened his mahogany skin, but his gaze shines bright. I know you maggots can't read, he spits at Zelly, but for Sky's sake, learn how to count. He smacks his blade against a weathered sign. As the sand falls from the grooves in the wood, its faded message clears. 1 cup equals 1 gold piece. Are you serious? Zelly seethes. We can afford it, I whisper, reaching into her pack. But they can't. She points to the laborers. The handful carrying buckets drink water so polluted it might as well be sand. But this isn't time for rebellion. How can Zelly not see that? Our deepest apologies. I step forward, calling forth my most deferential tone. I almost sound believable. Mother would be proud. I place 3 gold coins in the guard's hand and take Zelly's canteen, forcing her to step back as I fill it. Here. I press the canteen into her hand, but Zelly clicks her tongue in disgust. She grabs the canteen and walks back to the laborers, approaching the dark girl in white. Drink, Zelly urges. Quick, before your stalker sees. The young laborer doesn't spare a second. She drinks the water hungrily, no doubt savoring her first drink in days. When she finishes a hearty swig, she passes the canteen down to the diviner shackled in front of her. With reluctance, I hand the 2 remaining canteens over to the other laborers. You're too kind, the girl whispers to Zelly, licking the last drops off her lips. I'm sorry I can't do more. You've done more than enough. Why are there so many of you? I ask, trying to ignore my dry throat. The stalkers sent us here for the arena. The girl nods toward a spot, just barely visible beyond the clay wall. At first, nothing sticks out against the red dunes and waves of sand, but soon the amphitheater fights its way through. Skies. I've never seen a structure so vast. A collection of weathered arches and pillars. The arena spreads wide across the desert, covering much of its arid land. You're building it? I scrunch my nose. Father would never approve of the stalkers building an edifice like this out here. The desert is too arid. There are only so many people this land can hold. The girl shakes her head. We compete in it. The stalkers say if we win, they'll pay off all our debts. Compete? Zelly wrinkles her brow. For what, your freedom? And riches, the laborer in front of the girl pipes up, water dripping down his chin. Enough gold to fill a sea. That's not why they have us compete, the girl cuts in. The nobles are already rich. They don't need gold. They're after Babalawa's relic. And I apologize for pronunciation on this one. I'm not sure. Babalawa, I ask. The god of health and disease, Zelly reminds me. Every god has a legendary relic. Babalawa is the jewel of life. Is it actually real? I ask. Just a myth, Zelly answers. A story magi tell diviners before they go to sleep. It's not a myth, the girl says. I've seen it myself. It's more of a stone than a jewel, but it's real. It grants eternal life. Zelly tilts her head and leans forward. This stone, she lowers her head. What does it look like? Okay, so a couple of things with your notes in this. One, make note of the flashback. So what is this flashback that Amari has at the beginning? Why is it important? What's going on with it? What do we learn about her? How are both Amari and Zelly continuing to develop as characters? And we've also had our first true look at the laborers and the stocks and what they're experiencing. So why is this important? and what's happening, what's going on in this amphitheater, and prediction, what's going to happen with Amari and Zelly in the amphitheater as well to get that stone. So once you finish your summary and your annotations for this one, continue on to Chapter 3 of Children of Blood and Bone.